I welcome Professor M.N. Deshmukh, Principal of Satyagdarshan Institute of Engineering and Technology. I extend a very warm welcome to our highly distinguished speaker, Dr. Altaf Usmani. Dr. Usmani is a lead geotechnical expert in the field of design of underground structures and presently working as head engineering and design for underground storage group at Engineers India Limited, New York, in national and international journals and conferences. Dr. Usmani is also recipient of several awards, including Young Geotechnical Engineer Award 2010. He is co-chairman of Indian Geotechnical Society, Delhi chapter. Now I request Professor Deshmukh to welcome Dr. Altaf Usmani and say a few words on this occasion.
Thank you, madam. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the Civil Engineering Department and the faculty members of the department to have organized this webinar and FDP. And I also welcome Professor Dr. Usmani. My association with him goes long back since my PhD days. He was doing his PhD while I was also doing my PhD at IIT Delhi. So we had a very good relationship between us, and he was one of those brilliant students of IIT Delhi. After getting his PhD degree, he at the outset joined the prestigious Engineers India Limited. And there also he had been involved with academics. He has written a book and guided several masters in research projects and has been involved with international bodies and visited several areas in France, etc. And we are fortunate to have you, sir. And I'm sure all those attending, the faculty members, the research scholars, students, and probably some industry people around, that this webinar will definitely be helpful in his expertise area. I think he's one of those selected people who are an expert in the area of underground structures and has been in the bodies which decide the codes rather in this area. So I would not like to take much of his time, and I welcome Dr. Usmani. Sir, welcome. I request him to take over. Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much, Professor Deshmukh, for the introduction, and also Dr. Preeti. And I am also thankful to SDIET for giving me an opportunity to present some of the experience and work I have gained in last 10 to 12 years. Basically, this topic which I am going to present today, advances in field of analysis and design of underground structures, in field of analysis of underground structures. This is very close to my heart and close to my working. That's why I enjoy working in this area. I have been in this area from almost now 13 years, soon after the PhD. And since then, I have been very kindly attached to this one. I have been very motivated to work on this area because this is a huge new area for all of us in the country. And when I started my career back in 2006, soon after completing my PhD, this was the first assignment for which I was involved as an engineer. And at that time, it was told to me that this is the first project our country is going to start, which has never been done in India any time before. And EIL will be the first company to do this. And as a functional engineer, you will be the first engineer to work on this project. So there is no experience available before you in this kind of project. Only the experience, the expertise available is abroad. So at that time, the challenge was big for me to start something very new, but I was excited to do this, because this was a new area emerging at that time. Although our country has been working long in the field of tunnels and other structures, hydro caverns, but the structure that I am going to speak about today is completely new, maybe new to many of us, and maybe some of them I have known also, because now it's almost 10 years when we started this one. But 10 years before, definitely it was a new concept, new thing to start. So to move on, underground space, basically the vision normally people use for any underground space that we want. We all know that we are living in a country where the land is at very high cost and everything is available except a good land to build, a good soil to build, a good rock to build large structures, and basically to fulfill our needs. So you will see slowly, you will appreciate that in the time to come, you will see many of these things. Like on the left side, you can see a underground stadium for the youngsters, and on the other side, you can see a tunnel, a passage, a crossway, which is quite common in India also. Maybe not this, the state underground stadiums may not be so common in our country, but this is the future. Our aim is to free above ground space for the use of cities and make more and more utilization of the underground space. Following this approach, we started many things. So this is just introduction. What is the underground space technology is all about? Technology is about using the space or the which is below the land for development of different facilities, for development of different tunnels, halls, everything. So using the space below the land is basically underground space technology, which is quite common in the world. Now, when we move on to this underground space utilization, you can see on the left hand side, this is the world most common costly city, Manhattan, where you can see everything is available except the free land. And on other side, you can see the answers to many questions what we are looking today: the space congestion, the cost benefits, the safety against earthquake. So many of these, what we find answers: safety against explosive forces, separate usage of land, and defense storages. These are some of the challenges that we are going to cover when we are moving from land to underground, or basically from ground to underground. We will be seeing how these challenges will be overcome, but you can see from the list, these are quite important challenges in today's life. Every country, every society is working day and night to get some space, build structures which are earthquake, more stabilized, more resistant to earthquake forces, more resistant to explosives, and also defense storage in the future. So these are some of the answers that we will be going through. This is a quite common picture. I think everybody living in the NCR region must have seen the metro. This was also quite a revolution when it started for a city like Delhi, which has from no space to very limited space, construction started. So these are some of the pictures from there. This was also a good thing to start. You can see the TBM, which is normally used for constructing the tunnels. So these are some of the pictures. Metro construction was a good, remarkable achievement for the start of underground. Coming directly to our philosophy, the basis of design, or what is engineering about in underground. So see, design philosophy for underground works is completely different. We follow an observational approach. Now, when I say observational approach, I mean to say that design, everybody do a design before anything is going to construct on the ground. But in case of underground, the approach is quite different. We also do a design before moving on to any underground structure. But this design, it's quite basic, and it is completely revised, or at many times, sometimes revised to some extent based on the results we obtain during a construction, or based on the observations that we see as we move on to the construction. So this design is related to the construction. The design results are quite continuously updated based on the monitoring during construction, based on the observations during construction. So that's why we call the design philosophy as observational design philosophy. Now coming to design philosophy, what is important in an underground design philosophy? We are looking for 4 persons, 4G. Quite common word, but we are more concerned, we are group of peoples which are involved in geological, geophysical, geotechnical and geohydrological. So these are the 4 expertise normally who are very important in underground. There also, it's not these four are the main pillars of any underground design. Then we have other civil structures, mechanical, electrical, everybody is involved, but these forms the key group of any underground design, of any underground construction. These are some of the basic stages how we move on in any underground structure. We start with some basic design, followed by some analysis. Basically, these are the joint combinations of the two, and then the construction follow-up, which is very, very important and significant. It's not a follow-up, it's basically a design change, a design linked to construction. Okay, coming to some recent underground structures. You can see this, a marvelous underground structure. We call it unlined rock cavern, a huge structure recently built in our country. Just to get an idea, this is almost 30-meter high, a 10-story building, and 20-meter wide, a D-shaped cavern, almost made out of barren rock with minimum support inside. So this was one of the most challenging projects that I was involved through when I started my career. And now we have been quite deep into these designs, and we have done a lot of underground construction. So that was a design, we made it, we call it a wonder in rock engineering, because that was quite a big, because normally you see the tunnels which are high but not 30-meter high, not 20-meter wide, and similarly you see the caverns in hydro also which are quite high and wide but not so long. So this is almost 1 kilometer long, 1000 meter, 30-meter high and 20-meter wide. So we were able to build about 2 to 3 kilometers of this underground structures with a very successful design approaches. So today my concentration will be towards this design analysis and some strategies we followed. Preeti, I am audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now coming to some of the principle. Basically, this is a principle used for any underground structures. These are available all over worldwide. We call it hydraulic confinement, a new thing to develop any underground storage. What we are doing basically, this in the last slide what I showed you, this structure is we are making for storages of crude oil, LPGs and other hydrocarbons. That's why the capacity is so big. So we are going to store emergency storages in these kind of structures. So how do we store and how it works? So you can see this is the principle is called hydraulic confinement, where you have the oil inside this cavity. Then you have a followed by gas phase, and the most important part, the outside water pressure, which is keeping the inside things tight without any leakage. So this principle is called hydraulic confinement, where the inside pressure of the crude oil is less than the outside water pressure, and water pressure is trying to confine the oil inside. So this principle is used worldwide to construct underground large to store crude oils and other hydrocarbon products. We will be going through the details how this is done, but this is the concept, where the water table is at the surface, some water, additional water, artificial water is there, and you store the crude oil quite deep, 100 meters to 150 meter deep inside the rock, and you provide the pressure through water at the top between the cave-in. The lower part, this is called the cave-in, which I showed you in the previous slide, the 30 meter high and 20 meter wide. And the upper part, this is the tunnels, small tunnels, we call water tunnels, from which water is supplied and water pressure is maintained all around this through using the natural permeability of the rock mass. And the pressure inside is always less than this outside pressure, which is the basic principle of hydraulic confinement. Coming to the other same thing, the principle you can see in another detail. You have the oil, you have the water which is seeping, which is collected at the bottom, and at the top you have the vapor phase. So we are working in three: gaseous and liquid interface between the water and oil, and at the top there is a vapor phase. And at the top we have the ground profile and groundwater table. So this is built below the groundwater table, so we can take advantage of the natural groundwater pressure. This is a typical layout of an underground project. This is many things. What we can see from here, this you can see the brown one. This was a typical cave-in, which is around 1 kilometer long. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 kilometers of total cave-ins. This is a vertical shaft which starts from the surface and goes deep up to the end. This is the only connection between the ground and the underground. Rest everything is underground. Only this top of the vertical shaft, a circular shaft, is available at the surface to see. Otherwise you cannot see anything. Everything will be covered with plants and grasses. So at the surface what you will see, it's only this shaft head and some pipelines going. Rest everything will be inside. So this is the cavity where we store crude oils, and then followed by these blue ones. You can see these are the tunnels, these we call water tunnels, where water is stored to apply the pressure around these cave-ins. You can see this, some dots, these are the basically some pressure, how to build the pressure around these cave-ins. So this is all rock mass. So we use the natural permeability of the rock mass, and through this natural permeability, water flows from these blue tunnels downwards, and this water flowing makes an umbrella of pressure around these cavities, and everything is stored inside, and this water pressure prevents any leakage coming out. So this is a natural hydraulic confinement. Then also to start with, we have a one tunnel which is at the surface, which is used only during the construction for access. As you start from here, you move on downwards up to the depth it is required. So this is a inclined tunnel starting from the surface going up to the bottom, and after the construction this is closed, everything is covered, and this is not used for any purpose, just for construction. After that it is closed with water and filled with water, and everything is closed, only this part is visible. So these are some of the components. This is the cabin where we store. These are the tunnels to start. This is the vertical shaft where all the pipelines goes, and these are the pipelines through which the oil goes and comes. Because what we do, there is a nearby, all these storages are built near a basically a port, so that whenever the oil comes from through a jetty, then this, or through using a VLCC, oil is transferred from the pipeline goes like this, and pipelines goes inside the shaft, and these pipelines are connected to the cave-ins. So this is the way oil goes from the port inside the cave-in. And same way, when you want to use it, this is taken out from this end. So there is an inlet line and there is an outlet line, and this can be taken out and sent anywhere to any refinery, to anywhere we require it. So basically this oil is used both as an emergency and commercial also. So you store the oil, you store the hydrocarbons when they are cheap, and you can use it when the cost increases. So it's a business model also, it's a strategic requirement also. Coming to some of the details of the large cavity that I show you. This is quite large, as I told you, 28 to 30 meter high, 20 meter wide. It is quite challenging to design, to analyze, to build this. So there are a lot of analysis, engineering is involved that will be coming through how to design do. Basically what we do, we design it in small stages. You can see this top gallery followed by bench 1, bench 2, bench 3. So these are designed, these are analyzed, these are constructed in many stages so that there is no catastrophic collapse, there is no failure of a structure, because this is, you are making a quite large, and that too also with minimum support. You are using a strength of a good rock which can stand with minimum support, and you are utilizing the inherent property or inherent strength of the rock to build this structure with some minimum support, of course. Coming to basic requirements, as I told you, we are working in a very good rock because we have to build a quite high 30 meter structure. So a good rock is very important, and also we are working below water table because the principle is hydraulic confinement. So water table is very important for these kind of structures. It should be at very shallow level only. These are some of the advantages, as I discussed in the beginning, that surface requirement will be very low, hazards, especially earthquake, because as you are moving underground, you are aware the impact of forces will reduce, and this structure is from all the sides confined by the rock, which reduces the impact, plus external fire, very important part. There is no chances of fire because there is no oxygen available inside. All the underground structure is inerted with nitrogen. Then of course the chances of explosion because of absence of oxygen is also very low. So this is also very much safe against any war, bombing, similar kind of things. So these are some of the advantage which makes it very significant in present conditions for different kinds of uses. Storage of crude oil is one part. We have many things that underground is going to be seen in future. Coming some of the details of the engineering, how we do, what is very important. As I told you, for us a very important part is geology, because geology is the thing which provides us the all input information we need to start any design, we need to plan anything. So geology is the first thing which provides us the basic rock characteristics, the rock types, any geological features, any geological issues, which gives us a good idea to start planning and designing of such kind of structures. And in the same way, hand in hand, there's a rock engineering. There's a rock engineering part which is very much linked with the geology, where you start with, in geology most important is the drilling of the core holes which provide us the information, followed by this BHTV's borehole televiewer. These are some of the acoustic based cameras which we will see to identify the geology, to identify the joints. Then we have rock investigations, which starts with field investigation, lab testing, numerical analysis, numerical modeling, and then basically what we are getting, these two are providing us 3D models in terms of geology, 3D models in terms of rock. So we have one 3D model which gives us characteristics of the ground in terms of geology. We have another 3D model which gives us the characteristics of types of the rock available based on the data collected. So based on these two data, the predictive geological map and rock or geotechnical map, this is the first stage of any design to start with. These are the two inputs which we require to analyze and finalize the basic design of any underground structure. So these are some of the typical project stages which most of the projects follow, and also in any underground structure, any underground works. We start with pre-feasibility, which is basically trying to set up or trying to ascertain the feasibility of any new project at any specific location, which is followed by detailed feasibility. Pre-feasibility is more of reconnaissance kind of surveys overall, just to get a feel of the plot, the existing maps, existing structures, existing ground conditions based on the existing literature. Then we follow with detailed feasibilities, which is more of some investigation involved, trying to use some investigations. Then as we move on, we further go for basic design, which starts and then followed by detailed design, which is during the construction. So the important part for this any underground structure is the detailed design is done during the construction, and of course commissioning and completion. Going further to different stages, as I told you, there is a DFR which is called feasibility, then BED which is basic engineering, and then a detailed engineering or detailed investigations. So these are some of the types of investigations or types of testing or types of investigations we do during a feasibility, just to fix the feasibility, which involves some kind of geophysical, seismic refraction and resistivity surveys, a minimum amount of mapping, and also some stress measurements, because it's very important to measure the in situ stresses in the ground at which level we are going to construct or design our underground structure. So stress measurement is a very important part in our case. For any structure to design, we need to ascertain what are the in situ stresses existing in the ground level at the depth we are going to plan our underground structure. So that we do using lot of methods, but very commonly used is hydrofracturing, which is we use it to identify the major horizontal stresses and also the orientation of the stresses using water pressure for fixing the alignment of our underground structures. Same way, we need to assess the permeability of the ground to design our structure. And then we have also part geophysical survey in terms of seismic reflection and resistivity to ascertain different rock layers and interface of soil and rock beneath the ground. Coming to the further, as we move on, as I told you, we make some models. I will just show you what are the models. This is a typical model at a site, geological map of a site with investigations. So we use this map. You can see this is what we do based on the initial investigation. We try to identify some of the features, some of the typical things which we can encounter as we are going down during the construction of the structure. So this is basically to alert. It's called an alert map, or it's called a zonation map, where you can identify the hot spots before going to construction in an underground location. These are based on initial investigations, initial studies, initial maps. So as we call geological map, similarly we also have a geotechnical model, a geotechnical map, which is made before starting any construction to identify areas where the ground is going to be weak, poor, fair, good, very good, excellent. So you design, you plan, you construction, every step you do keeping in mind these two models in you. So whenever a designer is starting a design for any underground structure, he has to have these two maps with him to plan, to analyze, to design the structure in basic form. So these are very important inputs for any basic design. These are another picture of that design, what we do, how do we use this. These are what you see, green and red lines. These are basically representing some kind of specific features which needs more attention, more alertness, more caution when you design, when you construct, when you go underground. This is another 3D view of those specific features which could be encountered while you are designing any underground structure. So these are basically the weapons of any underground engineer to design a structure. This is another presentation of some joint sets, major joint sets. These are some of the results of a site that we identify major features, we identify major rock types, major soil types, we identify what is the water table depth, how much rainfall is there, because these data is like an input to any kind of design using the principle of hydraulic confinement, because we have to need the idea of how much water, natural water is available through rainfall, through other sources for providing the necessary hydraulic confinement. And if the water is not, if the water scarcity is there, then we have to plan additional artificial sources of water to fulfill the water requirement, to ensure the oil or the product is sealed using hydraulic confinement principle. This is another typical map, same way for geotechnical, how to classify different types. You can see on the left hand side the different types of the soil rock we have given to identify locations which could be problematic when you are going inside. This is a typical layout. So when you are going inside different tunnels, different cave-ins, how you are going to encounter inside, what kind of conditions you are going to encounter. This is an approximate, because once you go inside, then only you can have the real idea, the real observations. Then based on the real observations, you have to update your basic rock type, you have to update your basic design. That's why I say this is an observational method of design and not a complete design just beforehand. So whatever we do, it's more of a dynamic design or observational design approach. These are some of the other classifications we used in field of rock engineering, geology, geotechnical engineering, whatever you can call, to classify a good, bad, poor, very poor rocks, to get a first-hand information in terms of strength, in terms of modulus, that what could be the range, what could be the values to classify a rock. Coming to some of the latest tools we have. You know, presently the technology is moving very fast, and so our softwares. Nowadays we have a lot of facilities to do very quick analysis, both in terms of 2D and 3D. We don't have any limitations. Either you go for a continuum modeling or you go for a discontinuum modeling. You have everything available right now at your hand step in your PC to model, to analyze all that is available inside the ground. The only thing is that these softwares are only good for you if you have good information. Sometimes it is normally said about the software, if you put garbage information, you will get garbage out. So the scene should not be garbage in and garbage out. Softwares are a tool for engineers who can use a good judgment on the determination of input parameters which can be put inside these softwares to get a reliable sound analysis which can be used for design of a structure. So the basic important part is that you have to be a good engineer to do a good analysis, good ground investigation, good lab results, and finally a very important part, a good judgment. A good judgment engineer who can use the values analyzed from the ground to in a software which should give a result which can be used for design of any structure. So these are the tools. For the first tools you can see, these are for continuum modeling. When I say continuum, I am saying your ground, your soil is rock is homogeneous, continuous, no joints. So there the approach is different. And when you see the last one, this continuum, we include joints, breaks, fractures in the ground, in the rock, and we can also do the analysis to see what is, because practically in the field nothing is continuum, but continuum is only a quick way to analyze to get the results. The more closer approach is discontinuum analysis, which gives a more factual results of the field. So basically a combination of all these followed by unwedge, which is also a very good tool to identify the wedges, the blocks underground which could be harmful while you are constructing excavation. So these tools, analysis tools, are very significant for any underground engineer, and he should have a good experience while using these tools, not from the analysis point of view, but also from input parameters point of view. These are some of the pictures you can see. This is a continuum analysis, what we can see around a structure. You can see some red yield zones where the deformations are expected to be higher. Then you can see some block stability where you can see triangular blocks of the ground, of the rocks, which can form as you are moving down. So these could be some trouble areas for any engineer, for any designer, which needs more caution, more alertness, more supports. And these are some of the intersection of a horizontal tunnel with a vertical tunnel or two cross tunnels. These are the areas which are more critical in terms of stress concentration, in terms of high deformations, in terms of connections. So these all areas you can identify from your software tools. You can plan, you can design using these latest softwares, latest tools, and use this in your construction follow-up. And the best part is that once you do a basic design through these tools, once you are inside construction, you again get some parameters during construction, and you can again revisit the model, update the model, and get the best design parameters and get the best design support. These are some of the large structures we have analyzed. We have also published a lot of literature, a lot of studies. If you want to study, you can have these papers with these titles where you can see very much details of how analysis, construction is followed, how our designing is done using a constructional breakup. This is another what I was telling you about the hydrogeological model studies, where what we are going to model, that how the water pressure is going to behave around a cavity and whether this pressure is sufficient to provide any kind of seal so that there is no leakage of oil from inside to outside. This pressure, this flow will always be directed towards the cavity so that the pressure, this pressure is always maintained higher than the inside pressure. So this is a very significant part of your study where you are ensuring that hydraulic confinement principle is working. Analysis strategy, you are trying to carry out analysis for different kind of rock classes. As I told you in the beginning, you may encounter very good, very poor. So every kind of analysis you can do from the softwares, using continuum approach, using supports, without support, 2D analysis, 3D analysis, and also discontinuum, where the fractures, the planes, the joints are also modeled, and you can get a very closed field conditions actually operating in the field into your software, where the results that you will get are going to be more precise, more good for your construction, for your design. These are some of the problems of the slope, because when you start any underground, you have to enter the underground from somewhere. So these two are the entry tunnels. You can see here, we call the entry gates to any tunnel. So when you enter, definitely you have a lot of above ground slope above these tunnels, overburden, which needs to be stabilized before you enter any tunnel, because you have only this access available for you to return to the ground in case of any catastrophic accident or any other emergency. So basically what you are doing, these two starting points are very critical about you. These are very critical about you to design these two structures. So basically the slope around these structures, so that your starting point is never in a collapse condition completely. Afterwards, this all is covered with trees and grasses so that nothing is visible. These are some of the related to slope stability, how we are ensuring that the tunnels, what we are making, the starting point of any tunnel, how this slope can be stabilized using different support systems. These are some of the same thing. Okay, this is another new technology basically nowadays used very much in any underground construction, a very useful thing. We call it borehole TV, BHTV, borehole televiewer. Basically, this is an acoustic type of, we have also optical based and we have also acoustic based images. We try to develop this. This is basically a kind of camera which is sent inside a hole deep. You can send it to any good up to 100 meters, 150 meters, 200 meter depth, and you can get the images inside the small hole of 100 mm, 97 mm, 60 mm, and through that you can get the pictures of inside the rock face, and from those pictures you can identify that how the rock looks like, how is the rock joints looks like. So many information can be interpreted using this instrument nowadays, which is very useful to the designers, to the analysis person. So nowadays this is exclusively used by all international consultants and designers to get the information inside without actually excavating the rock mass. You are trying to get the information of the rock using a simple small hole into the ground. So that's nowadays very useful. Coming to this some of the graphs, you can see hot spot analysis. Nowadays this is very common in our analysis. Hotspots basically are the areas where you are going to have some trouble. So basically these are the warning signs, trouble areas marked before the start of the construction, and once you are inside you have to take more precautions that these hotspot will be requiring some more design, some more support, some more detailed engineering analysis, because you have encountered, you have estimated before starting the construction that there could be some problems in these areas. So that's why we use these tools as hotspot analysis, areas where needs to be redesigned, revisited during actual construction. These are some of the pictures of those analysis. what we do as a hotspot. So these analyses are done just before reaching that stage, 20 meters, 10 meters before that critical zone, so that we have in advance information. These are some of the blocks that is found. So these are some of the, what I am saying, that rock we are using, a good rock, but still it requires some minimum support in terms of fibercrete or shotcretes, in terms of some bolts, some grouted bolts, because we cannot leave a quite high 30-meter structure completely like that. So a minimum support, a minimum 50 mm facial support is required for stability requirements. These are some of the other things, same what we do in analysis and design. Some studies related to water table, how water table is analyzed around the cavities, how the flow is measured. Coming to another very important part, which is I think the slide, I just missed the slide. I will just come. Yeah. So a very important part of underground engineering, or you can say nowadays to any geotechnical or any structure, this is very important. We call it geotechnical monitoring. Sometime before, maybe some years before, 10-15 years or earlier also, this was not considered to be an important part of any project, and nobody, right from the consultants to designers to contractors to clients, were paying attention to this. But I think many failures, many collapses, or many things happen in between, which led to the thinking of process, change in the thinking process of humans, that monitoring has emerged as very important area. So what is monitoring? It's basically analyzing, observing the behavior of any rock, soil after or during construction. So what you are trying to do is this: you are constructing something, and during construction itself, you are putting some instrument, some kind of measurement in terms of displacement, in terms of stresses of the actual structure, and using those results of actual deformations and actual stresses for analyzing your design, for doing your design. So this is a very important part, monitoring. So how do we do monitoring? We try to monitor what are the deformations, what are the stresses that are necessary that you will get during construction, and those data, deformations, stresses will be used for updation of your design, the back analysis of your design, and also to alert yourself for any collapse, because any collapse will have a trend of large deformations, moving deformations, higher deformations. So you can get an alert using these tools. How this we are doing it? You can see these are some of the instruments, optical targets, extensometers, which you put from the inside cavity into the rock, and this rock, these instruments will measure for you the displacements. Also some other instruments are used for stresses, and then you can get these data from the field into your computer at any time, sitting at any place of the world. So what is happening? Your site engineer is putting this instrument and connecting it using a system of total station survey, a set of cables, a set of digital instruments, connecting it to the one computer, and through that computer everybody is connected. So all the consultant, clients, engineers sitting across the world can see the actual behavior, actual data at a single time in their PC. What is happening 200 kilometer, 300 kilometer, 1000 kilometer away in the ground? What is happening? How the ground is behaving just at the look of his PC. So this is the purpose of monitoring. You monitor, you understand the behavior of the structure. So monitoring is basically observing the structure, trying to identify its failure, trying to identify what else is required to prevent any collapse. And what you do, you collect the data in terms of graphs, and these graphs are developed for complete life cycle of the structure, complete construction cycle of the structure. And when we can see if the trend is stable or there is a movement, high movement of displacement, where you can say that there is some troublesome because the deformations are increasing. So it's a tool for an engineer to reanalyze, to redesign whatever parameters he has adopted in the basic engineering. These are some of the what we see a layout, how to provide. We provide different kind of instrumentations all along. So these are some of the tools. This is the data, typical data collected during the life of the structure, how deformations move, displacements happening in XYZ directions. These are some of the values, what should be the value, how much displacement is allowed, how much stresses is allowed. So we fix the value and then we do a study that what should be the permissible values and when you have to revisit the structure, construction design. And also a very important part nowadays, back analysis. So what is back analysis? Analysis is what you do at the start of any project. You analyze, you design, you start the construction. Once you are inside the construction, you observe, you see, you measure deformations. That deformations are sent back to the designer, to the numerical analysis software. And in the initial, you are using, suppose like modulus, you are using the modulus strength of the rock to ascertain the deformations. Now you are ascertaining the deformation in the field and you are back analyzing the modulus. So basically it is trying to see what was the modulus you selected at the start is really matching with the deformations occurring in the field. So that we call back analysis tool, a very important tool for the engineers. So this also details were published in many papers. You can see these papers also. So this is another map what we make after we get different types of soil. So basically these are representing a kind of soil zones. A good green means a good rock, poor rock, good soil. So these we do. So what we do at the start of the project and we do after the construction is completed. And we try to analyze that what was initially gained was similar, how much difference, how much things have changed. So these are continuously updated. So another very important area nowadays for every field, including civil engineering, including underground. As the chances of collapse, frequencies of collapse increases, so this subject also increased. Is very important part where what you do, you trying to understand what are the risks involved in terms of the consequences, in terms of the rating, in terms of the classes, in terms of the accidents. So there is a complete study which is called, just to get a feel, that underground risk is very important. We define a risk, we analyze a risk, we put a thing how the risk will be interpreted, how risk will be solved. So we classify according to catastrophic, critical, marginal, negligible. And then based on the injury, based on the accidents, based on the loss of time. And then you classify frequent, remote, occasionally, and also we classify who is responsible for this risk, who will pay the money, who will take the responsibility. So these are all designed, these are all fixed as part of the risk management, which is very important tool for underground engineering nowadays. Now coming to some of the challenges, some of the issues, just to wrap the things we are working with very, very large excavations nowadays. What you will see in some more time, 60-meter wide, 40-meter wide, maybe 40-meter high. So our zeal to go big and big, we are trying to make big and big excavate more challenges, more data. That is what we call an observational method of engineering. So that is the basic what we are doing, what we are developing nowadays. So these challenges are from little of experience, investigation, data, very significant part. Whenever you are starting a project, people's client, everyone is hurry to start. You don't have the time to do investigations, to collect data. The less number of data you collect, the more risk, the more danger you are going to have. So risk is management start of investigation. Then you are also encountering various kind of problems during construction. How much experience you are, the enemy is your underground nature. You cannot completely model, you cannot completely analyze what is there inside. You can only estimate, you can have some prognosis, you can have only approximations. The actual is whatever you encounter inside could be you. The time, the planning. So this is basically some new areas, or some of the not new areas from quite a long time, and we are very much into this metro tunnels, highway tunnels, railway tunnels, and the new things are underground. These last two are a bit new, but now these are also quite coming into the way. So you can see these are some of the things what you are going to see in future. These are some of the snapshots. What you can see, some even large underground bases, a large kind of car movements, important munitions, everything you can see. The way we are going, you can see something underground for aircrafts. We kept. So these are very important, significant. You can see something what you see in the movies. Some of the submarine bases which can be built underground, and you can see where the ship is going, where the submarine is coming, where the submarine is going. So these are some of the utilized. I think you must be aware of this. The picture on the left side, underground facilities at the CERN, the physics laboratory, which is known to world. It's an underground laboratory. So very in future, below the sea, the metro lines, the new tunnels coming up. So also we are also in the way of high-speed metro tunnels, high-speed trains, which are also going below the sea. So these are some of the new technologies where you will encounter all the knowledge of underground engineering, which is a new challenging thing and very interesting thing also. So these are some of the pictures which are already being into the active mode by different. You can also see something called nuclear waste repositories. You are doing developing a lot of nuclear waste. So where to put that waste? So people are thinking of developing underground structure for putting that nuclear waste. Same, you can have arms and depots. You can have control centers, everything underground, which can be seen to come in the time to come in future. You can have these kind of structures very somewhere being developed where this underground facilities will be used for every uses, from defense to state to command centers. So these are very important parts of our life. Underground is a significant part because of the scarcity of the land. You have to move underground. So underground gives us many advantages. You cannot ensure. Okay, coming back to the last thing, the future is underground. Slide I show you This is the tunnel, 2 tunnels, and the slope, which is the only access available. So this is a very second part of the start. Once you have a good start, you have a good finish. And just I conclude with the future is underground, and you should all people either from same underground different areas. Try more. Thank you. That's all from my side, Preeti. If you, any questions, anything is there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There are a lot of
Hello?
questions. Yes, sir. Can you hear? So the question is, are cavern always below water table? We could not hear you, sir. So,
Okay. So the things like that, Akash, like these caverns are used to construct, used to store hydrocarbons. So, and the basic principle is hydraulic confinement, which means that water has to be around these to prevent any leakage. So water table has to be every time above the caverns in this case. So you cannot build the caverns without water. Water table has to be above the caverns always.
sir, the next question is.
Is that okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hello.
Yeah, tell me.
Yes. The next question is, as the cavern is unlined, does seepage occurs inside the cavern?
Yeah, see, when I was saying unlined, it's unlined is there. There's a very minimum based on depending upon the permeability of the rock mass, very minimum amount of seepage that happens, and that is taken care during the construction. This depends upon the permeability of the rock mass, and normally we have the permeability in the range of 10 by 10 to the minus 8, 10 to the minus 7. So some minimum amount of seepage happens inside the caverns.
Okay, sir. So another question from Akash. What are the excavation methods used in caverns?
Basically, this is a drill and blast. Drill and blast means you drill a hole, you put explosives and you blast them. So this is a drill and blast. This is not a TBM or not a machine. You drill small holes, you put explosives and you blast them to get a D shape, to get a shape.
Okay, sir. So another question from Shubham. Which is the best suitable and commonly used geophysical technique used for determining water table?
Which is the best?
Best suitable and commonly used geophysical technique used for determining, I think he has written water table. He has only written water here.
See, geophysical methods we have in terms of resistivity and in terms of the other one. So normally we are doing this kind of test to ascertain the different profiles of the soil and rock. Normally you can ascertain the water levels through these in underground, and also you can do the actual boreholes, which gives you a direct idea, a small hole, that at what level you are going to get the water table. So both resistivity survey and the other one can be used to ascertain those levels. And additionally, you can also do some boreholes to get the details.
Okay, sir. Another question is, what were the software used for the analysis?
There are a lot of softwares, right from Rock Science, the UREC, the FLAC, there are a lot of Abacus. All softwares can be used. There is no limitation. You have to just make a cavity, underground cavity. You have to have a ground. Basically you have a mesh which is simulating the ground. Inside the mesh, you have to delete the members to get the cavity. So once you have the cavity, you can simulate, you can analyze the structure. A mesh and a deletion of the mesh, that's all required.
Another question from Abhishek. Stages of project, why the design part is done along with the construction?
Design part is not done along the construction. Design is done at the before the construction, but that is a basic design. What we do, that basic design, based on the basic design, the construction is started. Once the construction starts, this basic design is continuously updated based on the observations of the field. So what we are doing, just updating the design that was done before.
Okay, sir. So sir, like minimum support requirement, how do we design that? Like, how do we know what pressure it is going to handle before design even?
See, we have certain data in terms of rock quality, in terms of strength of the rock, in terms of modulus of the rock, in terms of permeability of the rock. These all parameters we use for stress deformation studies, for block studies, for flow studies, and then during this analysis we use some factor of safeties. Based on the factor of safeties, we put support requirements if anything is failing in terms of displacement, anything is failing in terms of factor of safety. So we apply minimum support. And then whatever we do as part of the analysis, as part of the basic design, we use it in construction. And if in the construction there are some more problems, some more complexities, so we do some additional designs.
So, sir, when we do this basic design, is it like how effective it is? Like we can predict deformation, how accurately?
Yeah. See, that's all what I was saying. If you have a good geotechnical data collected during site investigations, your judgment is good about the data. If you are giving good input data to the software, it will give a good analysis and reasonable design. So it all decides about your investigations. If you are good investigations, sufficient investigations, then whatever analysis you will do through software also give you analysis, software also give you design data. Design means in terms of dimensions, in terms of support. So everything you will get as output from the software.
So this basic design is done completely through software?
Yeah. With this softwares.
Okay, sir. So the next question from Abhishek is, how is the structure stable under high pressure? What is the magnitude of pressure for which the structure is designed?
See, this, as I told you, we have started with that we are looking only for very good rocks. When I say good rocks, a rock which is having a UCS or a strength of 50 to 70 MPa or modulus of 30 to 40 GPa. So what we are selecting is a good rock in terms of strength of 30 MPa, 40 MPa, 50 MPa. So these good rocks, these good strength rocks can easily handle, and whatever the pressure we are designing for whatever the crude oil stored inside is at a pressure of 1.5 bar, 2 bar, 3 bars. And same way, the water, whatever pressure is inserting is also 3 bar, 4 bar, 5 bar. So that pressure is comparatively quite low in comparison to the strength of rock, which is quite high, some 50 MPa, 70 MPa, and also the modulus in terms of 40 GPa, 50 GPa.
Okay, sir. So the next question is how we carry out dewatering from stored oil.
There's a separate set of pumps. There's a separate set of pumps which are used. One is for oil, one is for water. When you have seen, I think you have seen the picture. So you have a set of pumps which are located underground, because the water is, when inside the cavity you have the oil and below that is the water. So you have the pumps located underground, big submersible pumps which takes out the water first and followed by oil. So at different levels you have different set of pumps which you use it to take out the water and oil.
Okay. So another question from Nagarajan is, in urban area, a lot of adjacent buildings are there. including so many footings and pile foundations. So how the pressure bulb is pressure bulb is already overlapped. So how can we overcome these problems?
If you come across to these specific structures, what I have shown you today, these are quite far away from the any urban population, because I told you these are near to the ports. So in this structure, nearby facilities, nearby surface facilities are very limited. But of course, you are doing any kind of underground construction like metro, other things in a very urban areas also. So there, basically what you have to see, that suppose your underground structure span is 20 meter, 10 meter, 5 meter. So you have to see that in minimum 2 times of the span, 2D, that area should be away from the your existing structure foundation in terms of depth. So whatever depth you are placing the structure, 2 times of the span of the structure, there should not be any building foundation coming on just a thumb and rule. Otherwise, in detail, you have to analyze all the building structure foundations which are coming over that structure at the surface level, and your structure is below deep into the ground.
Okay. So another question from Virendra Singh is, what problems your team faced during the construction of these structures?
There are a lot of problems, mean to say, from, see, you are working below water table. So you can see high seepages coming around. High seepages coming around. And also there are some collapses, some surprises, which you have not estimated initially based on the investigations. So those surprises, some kind of collapses, some kind of high water tables, these kind of challenges, mainly water and collapse. These are the major challenges.
Okay. Any other question?
No,
sir, we don't have any more questions.
Okay, I think that's good. It was a good interactive session. I think you people have had some good learning experience, and I hope this will be beneficial for all of you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Usmani, for sharing your experience and knowledge with us. It was a very informative session and learning experience, and the feedback is quite good, which is coming in chat box. It has been a great pleasure.